Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, your home for all content Lord of the Rings home. I wanted to make a shorter video that kind of leads you through my thought process when I'm thinking about what to do with glyphs on my free-to-play account specifically. The free-to-play focus in mind. First thing though I want to mention is that in the pinned comment here, I'm going to link to a spreadsheet that has basically all the glyphs that I'm using, the sets, the primaries, and then what secondaries I'm looking for the characters I use on my main account. It doesn't have everything, I don't use everything, I don't have like a completely built out roster, but people have been asking what I'm using, so I'll put that in the pinned comment below. You're welcome to check that out. Second, if you're looking for a more in-depth discussion, I just did a very long video going into more detail. I'm going to show you spreadsheets. I'm going to give you long, rambling explanations about lots of this stuff. So if you're curious about that, you can go to that video, and I've got timestamps, and you can go see something more in-depth. If you're like, hear me say something, and you're like, I don't know about that, you can go check that video to see probably why I said that. So let's talk about glyphs. First and foremost, at a minimum, you should be getting your arena and raid teams all glyphed out. Just put glyphs on them. They don't have to necessarily be a matching set, but they all should have glyphs on them, and they should all be level 5. Anytime you get a glyph like that, just take it to level 5, and we'll talk about whether you should keep it or sell it later, but taking it to level 5 is not too much of a gold cost, and it reveals all the secondaries, so I think that's a good idea. Pretty baseline. You should be getting glyphs from your daily bonus chest, those 4-hour chests, plus you should be buying them from the main store at the bottom, especially if they're some of the major sets or some of the more useful minor sets. Speaking of, let's just go through kind of what exactly just a brief overview of the sets. Good default is either 3 times Bloodlust or Last Stand plus Bloodlust. Last Stand plus Bloodlust works well for characters, even if works better for characters that you don't think are going to be killing that many people or anybody at all, but you can still put the Bloodlust on there. That's totally fine. But that's a good default. The Last Stand for maybe a little bit squishier characters. I like Naramiri is a great example. I will put Last Stand plus Bloodlust on her, whereas I will put Bloodlust on a lot of my other characters as sort of a default. Armor Piercer is fine, especially for your damage dealers. I put it on like Elron here, Legolas. Whatnot works really well in Chapter 2 and Chapter 4, and gets better because they get more armor as the battle goes on. Totally fine. Last Stand, great. Lifestealer and Raider don't use these sets. Shield Wall is fine for taunting and characters that have Provoke up a lot, so somebody like Fro or Eladin, respectively. Vitality and Withering are fine. They've got their niche uses, I will say. Lembas, I've got it favorited here for Elron, and it's a little bit more niche, but it definitely works on specific characters. The reason I use it on Elron, right, is to get a turn 1 wave. I think some other characters it works well on is T-Beb and Eowyn if you want to turn 1 disable and cleanse, which I think works pretty decently for the raids. But you're kind of, the way to think about it is, do I have a character where I want a certain skill to be there turn 1 or come up faster? And are those character cooldowns a little bit longer than normal? Maybe a Lemba set is pretty good to use there. That kind of just brings me into talking about secondaries. There's not really a bad secondary. Some of them are more niche, and some of them I think are not something you should worry about as much. So I think block chance and block mitigation are probably the worst because they're so niche and maybe you don't need them as much on other characters, but pretty much all of the other secondaries are fine. So like focus, resistance, and armor, which I think people are normally like, eh. Those are actually, turns out, they're pretty decent secondary stats. The best secondary stats, I think personally, the best one is damage, and the second best one I think is HP. That's kind of just secondaries. That's my spiel there. For primaries, can't change the ones on the top here, right? But on the bottom, which you can't see. If it's a lower star character and I know I need to land a Bane, I will do 2 focus glyphs. Other than that, healers need HP, tanks need HP and armor. Everybody else needs damage. It just, support characters, if they are Bane heavy, I will put focus glyphs on them. If they're not, I will give them a little bit more survivability. Resist glyphs are fine, especially in the raid as well. So if it's just a good resist glyph, don't be afraid to use it. Just see what works. Like I said, I'll post that spreadsheet down below. But let's kind of go over what exactly I do for my free-to-play account in terms of like how I'm approaching Glyphs. So let me back out. And basically, the first thing I do, I have not stopped character shard farming. I do all my character shard farms, and then it's basically deciding what I do with the leftover energy that I have. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm switching off between taking a character to like G7 or G8, and then finishing off the glyphs for a particular character. So I just finished taking Bomber to G8. I'm testing him on my free-to-play account to see if it's worth bringing. You know, he requires a lot of investment, but I'm testing whether that is worth it or not for free-to-play people. And then, because I've done that, I now am going to finish off my Elron. You can see he's got level 8 glyphs here, except for this one over here. And what I'm really looking for Elron is I want secondaries of HP and focus. This one is a focus glyph, and it's got a focus secondary, but it doesn't have an HP secondary. So that's why I'm kind of working on that right now. You can see I've got focus on this one. I could probably swap that one out for HP as well. And then HP and focus here on this glyph. Right? HP. I could do HP and focus here as well. HP. So those are kind of two of the secondary stats that I'm going for at the moment. And that's sort of been my process, is I'm taking my top raid teams and I'm saying, okay, first I want to make sure I have one secondary stat on there that I want. For healers, it's usually HP. And then I've kind of finished maybe the first initial round of that, and now I'm coming back. Okay, now that I want to re-upgrade Elron's glyphs, let me focus on two secondary stats that I want, that being HP and focus. So I'll just go, that should actually be Lembas, right? Yeah. So I will go search for some Lembas glyphs right now. They are major. So you have to spend, you know, it's hard node energy, so you can only get a certain amount per day. I think I should be able to claim energy here. Yep, let's go do that. Go back here. Find some more Lembas here. I will look to see which of these is better. I think I have a bunch of these, 36, maybe not, but these I know I use a lot of, so I will probably do that. All right, now I have some Lembas stuff, and then I will see if I get any focus ones, because I want to focus here. I think I went with one focus. You can do two focus. It doesn't really matter. Because his wave, he's got decently high focus in the first place, but I might switch this out to two focus to make sure that my wave lands. I kind of just put this on there because I wanted his healing to be better, and it had a focus substat in it already. So this is a pretty decent glyph, so maybe I won't swap it out. So I wanted to do focus. Looks like I didn't get any focus Lembas glyphs here. You can see that I have been looking. Yeah, wow, not anything great at all. But why don't we see if we can find something. I'll show you what I do to upgrade. Yeah, so we'll just do these two right here. Okay, so now that I'm kind of starting to swap out glyphs in terms of secondaries, like I want this one to be an HP primary because he's a healer, and then I also want to have focus and HP. So let's go to upgrade. I hit reveal all. Block mitigation, speed, damage, crit damage. Basically, I hit the reveal all, and then I say to myself, should I sell this glyph or not? I would sell this glyph. At this point, I would sell this glyph. And the kind of criteria I have for that right now, I think it's probably the case on both of my accounts now, is I say, okay, these yellow bars here tell you how much, like, how close to a max roll you were for that particular secondary stat, right? This one is below half, closer to half, and this one's okay, 1.27% damage. That's actually not bad, right? But I would say this is a subpar glyph, so I would sell this glyph. What I personally want is 3 of these secondary stats at least to be over towards the right, towards the max rolls. That way, later down the line, when I'm upgrading and using these scrolls, which I don't have that much, the biggest amount of access to, they're kind of gate kept, I can know that I'm at least starting in a good place. So I would sell this one. And let's see if we can find that other HP one. I would also sell this one. But let's look at some of these other ones up here. So maybe we can get a good example, actually. This one I would also sell again because it's 2. So this is the kind of hard part. This is the process that is, you're spending a lot of time looking for the right glyph. This is something I would sell. I would sell this too. So you notice I'm not looking for the right combination of substats. Wow. But I'm actually just looking to see that they're kind of maxed out. Even if it's not the right combination of substats that I want at the moment, if it's sort of maxed out, I think this is probably a good example, right? Damage, speed, resistance, critical damage. I would still keep this glyph because it's a good starting point. And if I'm going to, maybe this is something I would put on Eowyn, for example. So it's got great stats here, and therefore I'm going to keep it. But it's not exactly what I want for Elrond. I would sell that one. Again, you can do it really fast because I just look at the bars and I say, oh, okay, yeah, that seems to make sense. This is also another decent one. Armors, crit chance, resistance, HP. Again, resistance is not that bad. It's not super bad. It's maybe not something the greatest if you're not focusing on it, but I wouldn't say it's an overall bad secondary stat that you should avoid. So basically we just repeat this process, and I didn't find anything that I was going to swap out really. And so I would, again, come back to farming this until I feel like I'm satisfied doing that with Elrond. When should you upgrade? Well, initially I was upgrading anything with just the one secondary stat that I have on there. I think you should leave things at 8 if you just have one secondary stat. Just upgrade it to 8. And the reason I'm saying that is because to go from 8 to 9, you need some of these scrolls down here, these green ones, and you should be buying those from the supply store, the raid supply store here, if you can, for 60 of these regular raid tokens. 60 of those regular raid tokens, just to kind of build up a little bit of a supply, but leave your glyphs at 8 for now. And then if it's a really good glyph and that character is obviously at G9, G10, I don't have any G9 or G10 characters on my free-to-play account, then you can maybe think about taking it that next step. But 8 is a good place to leave it. And so basically, I know my Rivendell team is my best raiding team, so I started with them. So I have Elron, I'm working on getting his glyphs better. But I've got Elladan all at 8. Arwen's all at 8 now. Sorry, Elr here, and now Elladan. And then I will go back and I will probably look at see if these are good. This one's probably pretty good, right? It's got armor, HP. Those are things I want on him. I think damage is also good on him. Armor, damage, armor, HP. So some of these are already very, very decent. HP, armor, and wow, I actually got some really lucky rolls on him. HP, damage, yeah. So I actually feel okay about pretty much all of these. So I will basically, that's what I do. I have like one favorited character that I'm working on for skills. I have one favorited character that I'm working on for glyphs, and then usually one favorited character that I'm working on for gear. And that's kind of my thought process is now I'm working on 2 secondaries for a lot of these characters. And then the glyphs that I have upgraded here can easily be like used as hand-me-downs for other characters down the line, and then it's not really going to waste because I still feel like it's an okay glyph because I start at a good starting point, making sure that at least 3 of those secondary stats are sort of maxed out. So again, that's kind of just my thought process on how I approach glyphs. It's definitely a lot slower on the free-to-play account just because glyph energy and normal energy are the same, and I still feel like I need to gear up my characters. Really wish that there was a better, they maybe had separated those energies, but here we are. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching and take it easy.